Hey guys, so for Tainted Love, we know that we're asking for a lot of video submissions, and for a lot of people, that might not be something that you know what to do. We have a gift from Cody Hunt. He's going to be teaching you on how to use, for one, this video, Adobe Premiere. There's going to be a second video that's Adobe After Effects, where the fun stuff comes in. This is going to be the first video where you get to learn how to stitch everything together and do it with a free membership. He's going to go into a very detail oriented way on how to use it. So we're going to let him go from here. Take it away, Corey. Cody. I did it again.
So this is going to hopefully be a pretty quick video. We're only going to be going through the basics of this program. We're not going to be getting too far into the weeds on this one, especially because this is not a program that I myself am have mastered by any means. This isn't a program I use very often, but I do know my way around it. I use After Effects a lot more, so tune into that video if you want to get into more effects work. This program is more like taking the video you shot, cutting it down to the shots that you liked, and stitching those shots together to create, a final video. After Effects is more like creating clever transitions or adding in cool effects, sparkles or particles or waves or whatever you're trying to add in to make it look cool. You can track things, the keyframes. It's crazy. There's a whole nother video that you can watch. Most of the time, what you're doing in After Effects, you're going to pull back into Premiere and you're going to put back in your timeline here in Premiere, and your final video export that gives you that video file that you're going to be turning in to Tainted Love. That's going to be done here through Premiere. So we're just going to be going over how to drop some files into this program, how to make a new composition, which is like your workspace in the program. We're going to be talking about what the timeline is and how to interact with it. That's actually your editing space. We're going to be talking about how to use a couple hotkeys in order to make your life a little bit easier as we go. And then we're going to talk about how to export that video when you're done with it. So I think this is the third or fourth time we're trying to shoot this video, so hopefully this one goes smoothly and we can get through it pretty quickly. But there will be moments where maybe I'm not being clear, or maybe there's something that Momo thinks you guys would like to know more about, and she's going to be asking me questions as we go. So if you hear her pipe in, that's what's going on, and we can answer those questions as we go. But I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen here. And do you see my screen, Momo?
Yes, I do.
Awesome. That's great news. You always want to make sure your screen is sharing when you're recording a screen share video. Oh, you re-record them like we do. Okay, so you see I have this program here called Creative Cloud Desktop. Now I'm going to take a second. We're going to talk about this. If you want to follow along with this video, you don't have to, but if you would like to, if you're a hands-on learner, I suggest that you do. You can go to Google and search Adobe Premiere Creative Cloud free trial, and you can find a free trial. It lasts 7 days, and it's free reign over the whole program for 7 days. You can download that, pause this video, go do that, and install it, and then come back here now. If you're an artist who you don't plan on doing much video work, you're just trying to translate your art into a video specifically because you want to be a part of the Tainted Love community channel, I totally understand that, and I wouldn't suggest buying this program. What I would suggest doing is set up your space, do your shoot, get your shots, be comfortable with the footage you have, and then when you're ready to edit, go and download this free trial, and then you have 7 days to edit this video and get a product out for Tainted Love. Once that 7 days is up, it will either renew your subscription, so you need to make sure to cancel it. If it asks you for your credit card information, which I don't think it does, I think it just will stop working after that 7 days. And if you try and open the program, it'll tell you hey, here's a link to go buy the license. But when you install it, if you've done that, or when you do that, it'll install through this Creative Cloud Desktop. That's how they've been doing it. And this, you see I'm in the All Apps tab. It lists all of the Adobe apps that I have. There's quite a few of them here. If you want to get it to, design, Illustrator is great, video effects, After Effects, and Premiere. If you want to get into live facial tracking, animation stuff, character animations, awesome. Definitely check those things out. But we will not be talking about that. We're just going to be talking about Premiere Pro. So how to open this program is you double click it or you hit that open button in this menu and it'll pop open the screen. I just learned that right now by accidentally double clicking it. But you can also hit that open button. As you can see, the program is actually existing in the background. We're in a pop-up menu here. I'm going to go ahead and minimize this so we're not seeing the videos here and move that up to the top. So this is just asking you, have you already started a project that you saved that you want to open? You can hit this open project, it'll open a file manager for you, and you can select that project like this and hit open. We're not going to do that. We're going to hit new project, and there's a lot of options here. Okay, do not get overwhelmed by all these options. You know, you're not trying to get into video, you just found yourself in a circumstance where you have to make this video to be a part of your favorite party, and so we don't want you to get discouraged, we want you to get creative. So I can tell you right now, if you just ignore all of the things on the screen except the very top two. You got to name your project and you got to give it a place to be saved on your computer. So we're going to go ahead and name this project video class. We're gonna save it in the, it's actually set to the right place. Usually it would be set to some random file folder, but for my sake, I'm going to save it here. But what you would do is you hit this browse button, it opens up your file, your folder manager, and you go ahead and click, you know, documents, or in my case, new volume, Chiki Choya. And we're helping with the Tainted Love. So this is our Tainted Love folder. I can open that, and that's where I've created this tests folder. And inside there is where we're going to save this. So let's hit select folder, and you'll see it there, Chiki Choya, BSSM, Tainted Love, and then tests. So you know that it's in the right spot, and it's called video class. Ignore the rest of this and hit OK. And that's going to boot open the program. Now, again, this might be a little overwhelming to see right off the bat. There's a lot of stuff going on the screen. So we're going to talk about that. Don't get overwhelmed. Just go ahead and sit back and get ready to learn. So there's some tabs up here. The learning tab is awesome. It kind of squishes everything to the side and gives you these tutorials on the side that you can click through. I highly recommend going through some of these tutorials. Some are longer than the others, and they get a little more in-depth. These are professionals and really enthusiastic people in the community who put out all these tutorials, and it's a great place to get more information. So is Google, so is YouTube. You know, if you ever have a question, just ask it into Google, ask it into YouTube. There's a million tutorials out there. You can click through these tabs and you'll see that it just kind of changes how everything on the screen is set up. That just changes your workspace. And this is kind of how they think, well, if you're working on color correcting, maybe you want your workspace to look like this. If you're working on effects, maybe you want it to look like this. That's all just preference stuff. I like to sit on the editing tab. And that just gives us a pretty simple setup here. First thing I'm going to do is go ahead and scroll this over. And the reason I'm going to do that is because this tile here is where we're going to be viewing our video while we edit it. This is just going to be like where we have effects controls.
Right now. So, Blood, Sin, Sex, and Magic. It's a Valentine's Day.
Okay, I thought Morgan had a question, but she didn't. So we're just going to keep going here. This is the screen where your effects controls will be once we start getting into effects. This is going to be where you drop your media files into here, and this is actually going to be your timeline where you're editing your video files. So before we go any further, I'm going to ask you go ahead and click this file button up here, and if you hit save as, that's going to open up where it wants it to save, and you can see, okay, video class is the name of our project. It's saved where we want it to save. That's great. We can go ahead and hit cancel. That was just a way for me to double check that it was saved in the right place. And from now on, we can go ahead and just click this save button. Instead of going at file and hitting save, you can also hold down the control button or the command button if you're on a Macintosh, and the S key on your keyboard. Command S will save, Control S will save. You want to save as often as possible. However, as humans, we err. So sometimes we're going to forget to save, and then there's going to be an accident. Maybe our computer crashes, or maybe there's a power outage, or maybe I just close the program without thinking about it because I'm tired. And then you lose hours worth of work because you forgot to hit Control S, or you forgot to go to File and hit Save. In order to save yourself from that, there is a backup system that auto saves for you. However, it's something you kind of want to dial in. So we're going to go ahead and go to Edit. We're going to go to Preferences. We're going to go to Auto Save. This should be checked, so it should automatically be turned on. However, I believe that it automatically sets to save every 15 minutes. And oh, whoops. And if that's the case, if you go to preferences, edit preferences, and auto save, and it says automatically save every 15 minutes, change that. Change it to 3. You always want to save more often than not, just in case those accidents happen, you lose less work. The only reason I would say to go more is if your computer really can't handle the editing software and like every time it's doing an autosave, it's taking like 30, 40 seconds, then maybe you change that to 5, maybe change that to 10. You're getting into a risk factor there, but you got to find a comfortable place between like a comfortable workflow and risk of losing your work. So that's kind of up to you to make that decision. I always set mine to 3. I'd rather suffer through a long saving times than not, and that's what I did for the first couple of years I worked on these programs. Lucky now I have a computer that runs a lot quicker, so I barely even notice it. I click OK. I'm going to click Control S. There you go. It saves the project, and then boom, disappears again. So now we're good to go to move forward with our project. You've got all this wonderful footage that you captured, and you want to, oh, that's not file. You want to put it in this program. So here's some of my facts that we captured this week for a stream that we're about to premiere, or maybe has already premiered, depending on when you're watching this video. But we can just, as you can see, I highlighted all of them, or you can just select one, or you can select one and hold down Shift and then the other, and it'll highlight all of them. Or you can select one and hold down Control or Command if you're on a Mac, and you can select multiples that way out of order. I'm going to go ahead and just highlight and select these first 4 videos. I'm going to drag them down to this Import Media Start box, and I'm going to go ahead and drop them in there. As you can see, that imports them in that way. I'm going to lower that down, and now we've got these video files in here. Yeah, I think there's, here we go. I don't like the way that it's showing me the icons. It feels bulky to me, especially like if later on I'm gonna have to drop this entire folder worth of footage in here and actually edit it. And that's gonna get really difficult to deal with here. So I'm actually gonna click these 3 bars here, and I'm gonna change this from icon to list. And that's gonna list them out by the names of their files. And that makes it a little easier. I can right click and I can create like a new bin, and I can title that, GoPro footage. And then now I know, like, okay, I'll grab all of my MP4s that I know came from this GoPro, and I'll drop them into this folder. And now I can close that folder, and it keeps all of my organization way more understandable. So like that's also something that gets really frustrating working with these programs. But if you're just good at from the start at this organization, it keeps it a lot less frustrating. Now we just have to click this drop down, and we have all of our GoPro footage here. So now we want to drop this into our actual timeline so we can start editing it, right? And the reason we ignored all that settings in the beginning, and the reason we don't have an active timeline open, is because we ignored those settings, I believe. If you don't know what those settings are, obviously you don't want to set them to the wrong thing, and that's something that turns people away from this program a lot. Well, I don't know about film. I don't know about aspect ratio. I don't know about frame rate. I don't know about any of these things. So I better not do anything than set the wrong settings. What this program does is it's really cool. If you hover your mouse over this little piece of folded paper here, it says new item. You can actually grab your raw footage, and if you drag and drop it onto this, see how it turns into a little plus sign there, and let go, it will make a new timeline, drop that footage into the timeline, and it'll set all the settings for this sequence, as they call it, to match all of the settings of the video you shot. So as long as when you shoot your video, you make sure you're shooting in 720, or you make sure you're shooting in 1080, which is hopefully you are, because that's what we're accepting for Tainted Love, then when you just drag and drop that footage onto there, it's going to automatically match all those settings. You don't have to think about that. Just ask whoever's shooting your stuff, like, am I shooting on 1080? And if you're shooting it yourself, Google how to make sure your camera, whatever kind of camera you're using, is shooting in 1080, and you can find a little walkthrough probably to help you set that in. It's not very difficult. Also, as you can see, it named the sequence the same as the file that I dropped it there. So the sequence gets named the same as that file. And also you'll see here, there's these little video sequence icons, but it added this little, like, there's little like lines moving on the other side. That's to simulate a timeline. So this is to say that this is a sequence. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go up here to sequence. I'm going to go to sequence settings, and I'm going to, oh, they changed that around. I just downloaded the newest update, and I am not used to it. Usually there's a way to change the name here. I'm going to X out of here, and I'm going to not do that. Oh, no. How do I get out of here? Let's do this. There we go. Okay. So, whoops. I'm going to drop this back in there. If we right click this, there's no rename option. Again, I don't use this program a lot, and I am in a new update, so I'm not. Okay, click, we can rename. Sequence settings, match frame. Should be in here. Wow. Okay, well, this is one of those moments where we would want to open up. Oh, yep, I was looking at GoPro Maps. We want to open up a web page, say Adobe Premiere, how to rename a sequence. Sure, I spelled all that wrong. Okay, I spelled Premiere wrong. Cannot change the name of sequence in the sequence panel. You can only change the project panel. Okay, yeah, of course, that makes sense. So here's the project panel, and we should be able to rename it here, is what it was saying.
Also,
Rename, there it is, bam. What?
and also too, like for anybody who's watching, that's a really good way on how to figure shit out in this program. Just Google it. I'm sure you're going to see it over and over and over again. Like we're all building the plane as it flies. So
Yeah, and you know, this program has been a staple in the video editing community for over 10 years. So there's a lot of information, and Adobe's really good at keeping their information updated. So yeah, as you can see, the first thing I got from Google was it told me, oh, you can't change the name in the panel, which is where I was trying to change it. It says you can only change it in the project or the sequence panel, which is where I was trying to change it. It says you can only change it in the project panel, which is what this is. This is the project panel. So I was like, oh, I was right clicking here. Of course it didn't have the option. I got to go to the project panel, right click it here, and now I get this rename option. And we're just going to call this class with some extra S's. All right, so now our sequence, you see up in here, the tab, it's called class, and that kind of makes it a little bit more manageable here. So it's not the same name as this, and you know that this is a sequence and this is a video file. That was a little bit of a tangent, but I think that's really important. Organization really helps things a lot in this program. You saw my autosave just popped up there in the background. Now that I'm thinking about it, I'm going to go ahead and control save myself, because it actually saves those in 2 different locations. It saves when you control save into the file, you select the folder you selected, but when it autosaves, it creates a new folder inside of that folder called autosaves, and it saves them in there. So I like to keep all of it updated. So whenever I catch the autosave pop up, I just go ahead and control save myself. Okay, so we dropped some files in, we created a new composition, and now we're here on the timeline. So there are some main things you're going to be doing in this program. You're going to be moving video around, which you can just grab, click, and drag and move it around. You can move it around horizontally on the timeline, which changes the time in which it appears in the video, or you can move it up and down vertically on the timeline, and that changes what layer the video is on. And we'll talk about that more in a second. Actually, right now, because one of the easiest ways to transition, let's say like I got a really cool shot here and I want that to go into this next really cool shot I got here. So I'm going to grab this other really cool shot, I'm going to drop it in the timeline, I'm going to butt it up right against this, and you'll see now that when I scan my little selector tool over, boom, it hard cuts there, bang, bang. Like I'm going to zoom in. So a cool way to zoom in, you can use the plus and minus keys on your keyboard, or you can grab these little tools down here and just drag them forward, and it's going to zoom into where your selector is. And that's so you can see less time at a time, if that makes sense. So if we zoom all the way out, it's like this is 0, and then this is, 34 seconds. So this is all 34 seconds right here. Whereas like if we zoom in all the way to here, this is, or I guess to better give that example, go all the way to 0, zoom all the way down to here. Now, where this was 34 seconds, now it's 8 seconds. This is 10 seconds. So this whole area is 10 seconds now, and you get to see it a little closer in the video. So that's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to zoom in to this cut so that we can more slowly, I'm using the plus and minus keys on my keyboard to do this. You can slowly kind of scan over and see the hard cut here. So you can see going here to here, there's a hard cut there, bang, bang. And that's the quickest way to slam video together, is making hard cuts. Now, the second thing you're going to want to do, well, actually, before we go into that real quick, let's say that you didn't start the recording and get the perfect shot, and then start the next recording and get the perfect shot. So slamming these two video pieces together isn't going to work. I'm going to highlight this and hit the delete button, just get rid of it. Let's say you got the 2 perfect shots you wanted in this one video file. So let's say like, oh, I really wanted this shot where everything was white, and then I really wanted this shot where everything is red. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to this white, where the white light is, and then, okay, we kind of go to red here, but that's not the shot I want. I'll back up a little bit. Oh, I backed up too much. So I'm going to go ahead and zoom in here so I get a little bit more finite control. And then, okay, there's that red. So we back up. Here's basically the end of where we want, because then that blue light comes in. We don't want that. So we want this light. Okay. So then we know this is where the shot we want to end is. So we need to get our cutter tool. Right now we're at our pointer tool, and you can click and drag things with it. We need our cutting tool, and it's this razor tool right here. And if you hover your mouse over it, you'll see that the hotkey to get to it is C. So you can either click on it here, and now you've got this little razor blade as a mouse, or you can click the key C on your keyboard, bang, and now you have it there as well. And you'll notice that your pointer is V, so you can click back and forth from pointer to cutter, pointer, cutter. And all of these different tools have hotkeys, and you can learn about those tools more the deeper you get into this program. I'm not going to be talking about any of them except for the selection tool and the razor tool. So right now we hit C, and we went to the razor tool. We know this is the end of this cut, so we go ahead and click it right there, and bang. I'm going to click back to the pointer tool by hitting B, and I'm going to move our slider over, and you'll see now there's a split here. So if I grab the second video and move it forward, it's going to leave this first portion here. So now this is its own little piece of video because you made that cut. Now remember, we wanted to cut directly to this downwards looking shot. Oh, we got to zoom out a little bit because it was further in the footage. This shot here, and we wanted it to when it was red. Okay, there we go. So back up. Where's the beginning? Not there. Oh, there. Let's zoom in a little bit for more finite control. And there's the switch. So this is the first frame where it's red. I'm going to go ahead and hit C again. I'm going to hit that cut tool. I'm going to zoom out a little bit with the minus button so you can see here. Now there's 3 little videos. Actually, we'll zoom in a little bit. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit V to get the pointer tool back, or you can click here. I'm going to select this little middle video. We don't want any other shots in here. None of this was the good stuff. So we highlight it and we hit the backspace button. We just delete it out of there. And now we can drag this video over and slam it to the edge of this video. And you'll see it cuts straight from our nice white light to our red light in the corner. Bang. Just like that. We have the perfect cut, and it was out of that one piece of footage. Now, I'm going to go ahead and select all of this, and I'm going to delete it. And I'm going to grab one of these. What is this? I don't know. I'm going to double click it. Oh, no, that renames it. Okay, well, we're not getting our preview. Oh, it's because not selected. We can select this, right, and that will know. Okay, usually you can get a preview. It doesn't matter. I'm just going to grab this footage. I'm going to drag it into the timeline here. It says it doesn't match the sequence settings. Oh, okay. So I must have shot this footage differently. And this is interesting because when we made those automatic settings with that first piece of footage, we said that those were these settings. And I can see what's different on the screen right here, and it's the frame rate. You can see these first 2 shots were shot in 29.97 frames per second, and that this is shot in 59.94 frames per second, basically 30 and 60. That's okay. You're going to get a little bit of a different look dropping a 60 frames per second video into a 30 frame per second timeline, but it's okay. Part of this process right now we're all in figuring out how to do these online events and stuff is like just figure out how to translate your art into this video based setting the best you can. It's not going to look perfect. None of this is going to be like super high quality Hollywood professional looking stuff. You might have one friend come with a DSLR and another friend show up with a GoPro, and you're slamming those two pieces of film together. Oh, there's a warning. And they don't match. One's a little darker and fuzzy. The other's a little brighter and more crisp, and you can totally tell in the video swooping back and forth. That's fine. Those things are fine. You just got to work with what you have, right? And really focusing on the video editing and the setup that you're filming is really going to help the viewers and who are watching the art have the willful suspension of disbelief higher so that they aren't seeing those changes, those subtle changes in the differences in how the cameras look and whatnot. So in this case, I'm not going to change the sequence settings. I don't want to render my final video out in 60 frames per second. I want to render it out in 30 frames per second. And that's what we had originally set this sequence to. So I'm going to say keep existing settings. And I'm always going to have this always ask on because it's a very important question. So I'm going to keep existing settings. And now we have this new video in here. And you can see it's of this DJ. And I actually just want to check something real quick. Okay, ignore that. So we've got this video in here. And so we just learned how to do a hard cut, right? You just slam the video right next to each other. Another way you could do that hard cut, instead of doing it on the same, you could move this up a timeline and it'll snap it. You see how I slowly go and then boom, snaps it to that location. You can slam it that same way and it'll be a hard cut like that as well. So that works the same. But let's say we want to fade from this DJ into this time lapse. Now fade's a little bit more complicated, but it's still fairly simple. Zoom in a little bit closer for some finite control. We see here like around, we want to see the DJ for 1 second. We want to fade for a second, and then we want to see this other video after that. So right at the 1 second mark, I'm going to put this next video we want to see on the second layer in the timeline. And you'll see that as soon as it hits that video, it takes over. Whatever video is higher on this timeline, so on the top, is going to be seen. So as you can see, if we hit this I, which will toggle the track on and off, we turn it off and it's the DJ underneath, we turn it on and this takes over. Excuse me. So what we want to do is we want to take the opacity of this video down, right? Opacity is how much you can see. So if we highlight, you see you can highlight the different video tracks. If we highlight this video track and we go to Effects Controls, I'm going to close the tab of Motion Effects, and this is called Opacity. And the opacity is set to 100. If I bring that opacity down to 0, we see the DJ again, because you can't see any of that thing. If we bring it up to like 50, right, you see both videos, because now there's an overlay. You can kind of see through the top video to the bottom video. If we turn it back to 100, it's all this video. Now we know that at 1 second, we want to start fading in this video. But obviously we want it to start at 0, because to fade into it, you got to start at nothing, and then you go to full visibility. So we can either click and drag this, or I can hit Control Z, which does undo. I don't know if we talked about that. The undo button is Control Z. That's huge. You're going to undo a lot of stuff, especially when you're first testing out this program. You're going to try something, it doesn't do what you kind of want, or it does something interesting, but you want to go back to where you hit Control Z, and that does undo. What I was going to say is you can click and drag this, or you can click it, and then you can just type in a number, right? In which case, we're going to type in 0. So that sets it to 0, and but we want it to fade in. And right now, if we go forward, it just stays at 0. So we're going to click back to this very beginning at 1 second, because this is where we want the fade to start. And we're going to click this little clock. This clock is going to, it's the toggle animation. So this is going to start our ability to animate, and it's going to place our first keyframe. Now, the concept of a keyframe is basically like, you know, the frame rate. We were talking about this frame rate, 30 frames per second versus 60 frames per second. What that means is how many pictures the camera is taking per second to make the video look like a video. So in this case, every 30 ticks down here is a second. And if we zoom all the way in using our plus key on our keyboard, you can see 1 frame, 2 frame. And you'll see the count up here, right? We start at, let's just start at 0. If we start at 0, we go, we're at 0.1. That's 0.1, right? And then 2, 3, 4, 5. And once we get to 30, it starts over at 0, and now we hit 1 second. I'm using the arrow keys, by the way. You can use the arrow keys side to side to click through a frame at a time. And you can see as soon as I go 29 to 30, there is no 30. It just goes to 1 second and then recounts that to 0. So now it's 101, 102. And once we get to 1029, it'll go to 20. The arrow keys are essential. So if you're zoomed out like this and you want to go just a frame at a time, but you're too zoomed out, you can use the arrow keys. And you know you're just going a frame at a time. Okay. So what a keyframe is you break down the word. Key as an essential, frame as in one of these, you know, little frames that we're counting in. So the keyframes are like the most essential frames. You can plot 2 keyframes that have values set to them, and the program will calculate the values in between. So when we hit this clock, it's going to create a keyframe. Oh, whoops. Yes, we create that keyframe. It turns blue. Now we've got this button here, and we can click it to add or remove keyframe. It already has a keyframe, so we don't need to click that. And that keyframe has a value of 0 opacity set to it. Now we know, I'm going to back out of the timeline here a little bit, and we know that we want the fade to last for 1 second. Oh, wait. Okay, I think I accidentally placed this keyframe in the wrong place. So I click that clock again. That turns off the animation and it deletes all the keyframes that were placed. So be careful turning that off. I did it because I want to reset. I think I placed the keyframe here to start and not right on 1 second where we want it. So I'm going to do it on 1 second. It's got the value of 0. We want it to take a second for the fade to kick all the way in. So we're going to move over to 2 seconds here. And we're just simply going to change this value to 100. And as soon as we hit enter, it places a second keyframe down so that now if you scan your cursor across, you'll see that video slowly fade in. If you hit your space bar, it will usually start pushing this across the screen automatically, and you'll see your video play. That's how you preview your video. I'm having an issue with my graphics card right now that's causing some issues in the program. So when I hit play, or when I hit spacebar, it doesn't do anything. Or when I hit play button here, it just plays some audio, and that's it, unfortunately. But when you hit spacebar, it should start playing a preview of your video, and that's going to be essential. You're going to constantly be clicking back and playing space and making sure it looks smooth, and clicking back and playing space kind of thing. But that's kind of how you would fade into the next track, right? And then let's say we wanted to go to this track. I'm going to put this track, you can either put it on top and you can do the same thing. You animate this track going to 100. But if you keep doing that and you keep stacking up, you're going to have tons of these layers. So what I suggest doing is just popping this back down to the bottom, right? Let's say we want to, this fades into this video at 2 seconds, and then we want it to play for a second. And then we wanted to fade down to this video and take a second. So at 3 seconds, because of course it comes to full opacity, so it's the first video, and then 1 second we fade in the second video. At 2 seconds we sit on the second video, and at 3 seconds we're going to put this next piece of footage. And instead of animating this piece of footage from 0 to 100, we're going to take this piece of footage we already animated, and we're just going to send it from 100 back down to 0. And all you have to do is put your cursor at 3 seconds And the value is already set to 100. So you can either click it and just type in 100 again and hit enter. But why would you do that when you can just click this button? This is the add or remove keyframe. Now see how it's gray? That means that like if I come back to 1 second, that's blue. And it's blue because there's already a keyframe there. But if I go to 3 seconds, there's no keyframe there, so it's gray. But we want to add a keyframe there of the value 100%. So you click it, bang, now it's blue. Now you have this keyframe value of 100%. And we want that to last for a second before it's fully faded out. So we go over to 4 seconds. I almost made it, so I click and drag the 1 frame over. There we go. Or I could have hit the arrow key over. And now I'm at 4 seconds. You can reaffirm here on the timeline and here. And we want to change this value to 0. And changing it to 0 and hitting enter obviously changes our keyframe to blue, and that places a keyframe. So now we start with the DJ. We fade into this time lapse for a second. We stay with it for a second. And then we fade out of that time lapse back into the second shot of the DJ. And now we're in this shot. And that's how you do fading. So that's the other main thing you would do in this program is fading and cutting. And those are like the main things. Obviously, if you do any After Effects stuff, you'll bring those back in. Like let's say instead of a fade here, I wanted to do some fancy transition. Like what I would do is, let's actually just delete everything and talk about that for a second. So I would put this here. Okay, yeah, keep existing settings. I want that to transfer into this at 1 second. And let's say I want to do like some cool spiral out swipe thing or whatever. What I would do is just go ahead and like, you can take these same files into After Effects and line them up at that 1 second mark in the footage where you want and make that transition there. Export out just that small portion, and then you bring that in as a video clip, and you can drag that video clip in over top of these and just replace it so that it has that effect in there at that point. Again, if you're going to go that route, please Google for some more in-depth tutorials. We're not going to get into that with this class. In fact, this is as far as we're going. The next thing we're going to do, I'm going to hit Control-Z a few times until we get this back. We got our nice little fade thing here. And I just want this other DJ shot that starts at 4 seconds to last 1 second. So at 5 seconds, I'm going to go ahead and hit my C button for my cut, and I'm going to cut all of this footage. I'm going to hit V to go back to select. I'm going to highlight all of these cut pieces, and I'm just going to delete them. So now we have a pretty empty timeline. It's just the beginning here. So now we're happy with this edit. It fades through the shots the way we want, and now we need to export it to make a file out of it. So what we're going to do is we're going to save for one, Control S or File, Save, and then we're going to hit File. We're going to go down to Export, and we're going to choose Media. Now we have our export setting pop-up menu. And this is pretty important. This is how you make sure everything is good. So you don't want to like edit a bunch of cool high quality photos and then export it within the wrong settings and it's just super pixelated and stuff like that. That's a bummer. So what you want to do is make sure you're compressing this in the right way, right? It might be just set to an AVI right now for you. And that's, I believe, lossless compression. So it's, or not compression. Yeah, uncompressed. There's no compression at all. So it's going to make massive video files. And that's not what you want. You don't want to send us a 20 gigabyte video file. I won't open it. You want to send us something much more manageable. So you want to compress it. I usually do mine, I put mine down to H.264, and that's just like a good MP4. And that's what it'll export as. Also, there's all these options. If you want to learn more about those options, again, look into it online. There's a lot of information and resources out there. But there's these cool presets here that'll change a lot of these subtle details to match whatever service you're going to be uploading on, right? And there's a lot of options here. You know, if you want to upload to Facebook, ultimately, here's some Facebook presets that match your settings. we're going to be doing the Tainted Love community channel on YouTube. So we're going to be uploading to YouTube. And they have some YouTube presets down here all the way at the bottom. And let's say you shot your video in 720. I think I shot mine in 1080. So you would choose 720, but I'm going to choose 1080. YouTube 1080p full HD. Boom, that's a preset. And that's going to set all the micro settings of this video and just kind of make it optimized to upload to the YouTube platform. Yeah, there you go. You can highlight audio down here. Oh, nope, that's just already right there. Make sure export video and export audio are on so that your audio tracks get exported as well. And then what you want to do is this output name, go ahead and choose that. And that's going to open up your file manager. We want to save this in that test folder like we were already in it. If we weren't, we would navigate to it, of course, like we've been doing here. Boom, and then tests. And we want to name this class video, class fade video. Yeah, there we go. And it's a little fade video. We hit save. And now it's being saved as class fade video and it's ready to go. You can just go ahead and click export and you'll see it load up there. Bang, it was pretty fast on my computer. It might not be as fast on your computer. If it is going to take over an hour or it's going to take long like that, I recommend just not doing any file transfers and not messing with anything on your computer. Don't click or like go on the internet or anything like that. Just let it sit there and render. Just a quick side note on that, if your computer is having difficulty running this program, it's chugging along, it's not having an easy time. Every time you move this thing, it takes like a long time to even show you like where the video is switching to. You can change the quality, the playback resolution here. It might be set to full, but you can change it all the way down to 1/4, and then it'll drop the video resolution. It'll look like trash, but that's fine. You know, it doesn't actually look like trash. It's just low rendering because your computer can't handle it quite as much, and that should make things run a little bit smoother. And then when you export it, it automatically sets it to be the full value. So obviously when we rendered that, it just loaded and then disappeared. We're still in the project. How you find it would be to go into your file menu and, oh, there, I ran in the wrong place again, but you know, we know where it's at. Right here in this test folder, and we named it class fade video. Here it is, class fade video. We double click that. It's going to open in this video player, fade to our next shot, fade to our third shot, and then the video is over. I have it set on repeat so we can see that again. I can double click it to full screen, and here it is, a full-fledged video cut together of whatever your weird art is that you want to share with the rest of us at Tainted Love. So I believe that that's it. Momo, did you have any follow-up questions or anything before we ended?
No, I mean, you're really thorough when you go through and you actually teach on what we're going to be doing so everybody else can pause as they're going through. Thank you so much. Like, this is something that I'm going to be referring back to. So other people who are creatives, it's so useful, so valuable. And thank you for this gift.
Of course, of course. Yeah, so get your art filmed and edited and send it into our email or Dropbox. If you don't know where that is, go find the Tainted Love event page and the info will be there.
Thanks, Cody.